let's get into the mailbag, Abby. Where are we starting off at?
Touched on this a little bit, but how would you improve the spring game experience? Maybe outside of catching punts.
How would you improve it? It's a tough question, Abby.
I just think the weather.
I got away.
I think the weather is a huge part of making the day great. I think and I'm sorry, but I'm not a fan of the 11 a.m. I think a 1 p.m. is much more convenient for traveling people coming in for warmer tailgating conditions. So the weather is a big part.
I got to make it better.
And the 1 o'clock, I think, is a little bit better for fans coming in. But yeah, just showcase your best players.
Okay.
To an extent, you don't want to go overboard with that. But I think the bigger thing is that just play real football. Like these two-hand touch, things like that just does nothing for me. And it almost puts you to sleep. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, even if you're going to like a running clock in the second half, just play a real football game. That's what people want to see. People want to see tackling. They want to see hitting, breaking tackles, like actual live football. So they can be their own judge and evaluate guys on the field rather than just some really controlled practice setting.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Well, I don't need to elaborate. Move on.
The piggyback off what Robin and Sean said, move on. All right. What do you got, Abby?
Okay. So going into the spring game, which position groups give you the most optimism and which ones are a little more concerning for you?
Receiver gives me a lot of optimism.
Yep, it does. Because
the transfers, I think Banks, Naor, the freshman, Ja'Cory Barney, Charles.
Demetrius Bell.
I see. Why did I say Charles? Demetrius
Bell. Yes.
Then obviously Malachi Coleman will get back. Jalen Lloyd.
Yep.
Jaden Doss.
Yep.
I mean, they've got options there. And then Alex Bullock's a veteran. And then Isaiah Garcia-Castaneda is a veteran. So they've got a nice room, I think, that's going to be improved from a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rule mentioned Keelan Smith today, too. Now, he might not be quite as far along, but Rule mentioned him today. Davon Hall. Oh, yeah, they got a room now. They do. What's yours, Rob?
I mean, D-line's the easy one. I think it's by far the strength of the team. And with the veteran players they have inside, and we just talked about how good Chief Borders has looked at that jack spot. Like you got Princewell, you got Lenhart. I mean, they got some dudes now. And I think that's going to be the strength of the team and the reason why that defense is going to be what we think it's going to be.
Rob, I don't know that it's his by far.
You don't think so?
Well, secondary's awfully good too. Probably more depth.
Maybe.
Close.
My concern is still running back just because we don't know what the picture is going to look like.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think it's a valid concern. They don't have a star there. Your top guys are injury prone. They're just being real. I mean, I like them. I like those guys. But there's no Amir Abdullah in that bunch. There's no guy that you say, oh, he'll get you 1,100 yards. I don't see that guy.
Yeah, it's like using since we're in spring, a landscaping analogy. It's like having a bunch of just like trees and plants and just putting them all together and just say, let's see if this turns into a garden, and
interesting.
And it might turn into a beautiful garden.
Right. It might.
Or it might not make it.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel like that's the running back room right now. They've got all these potential pieces that could grow into great things, but you don't know today. And I don't care who you are. You can't say what this running back room is going to look like.
And to me, until one of those guys actually does it in a game on the field, quarterback is going to be a concern.
Sure.
We just don't know. We don't know how they're going to respond.
Those are intertwined, too, because you're not going to have a quarterback running game this year.
Unless Harburg's out there.
Yeah, unless Harburg's out there. And even if Harburg's out there, I don't think it'll be as pronounced as last year. So you got to get production from the running back room. It's got to be, it starts up front, always starts up front. But they need a running back running game, especially now that the offense is different. Now that your quarterback's not going to lead the team in rushing. In fact, he's not going to be close. I mean, if it's Dylan Raiola, he might not have 50 rushing yards.
Which is where rushing the ball matters because teams are going to drop 7 or 8 into coverage because they know the quarterback's not a threat to run.
Yeah.
So that's when your O-line better be able to win 5-on-4.
Yeah.
They better be able to win 5-on-4 in protection. They better be able to win 5-on-4 and running the ball if teams drop back 7.
Yeah. Sean is in game mode. I could hear him saying that in the press box.
I mean, if they're only bringing 4.
You better win 5-on-4.
It's not wrong.
Against UTEP, okay? Or Sean's going to be pounding on the table.
And it's really 6 on 4 when you count tight ends and fullback. I mean, it's more than 5 on 4.
100, Sean. I
All right.
totally agree with you.
Next question.
I know we don't know who's going to enter the portal, if anybody, but what positions do you think Nebraska might go after in the portal?
I just don't think they're going to do much. I mean,
Yeah, what would it be?
I think a quarterback right now would be a force.
Do you? What about the right veteran quarterback who has some experience and is willing to do it?
I just don't know if that guy. And first of all, I don't know if they'd give a full scholarship to one of those guys. I think it would be a straight up NIL take. I don't know if you're really high on Kalen, Harburg, and Raiola, that trio. I don't know if you can find another guy that's going to make sense.
Okay. Now I will say this: you always will take a big lineman. Always, no matter what your situation is, you always take a big man.
And last year they only took one spring portal addition, and that was Tyler Knack.
Yeah, and that applies to offensive line too. You got to take bigs if they're available and they want to come. You almost have to if they're good within reason.
And that goes for either side of the ball too. I mean, that's why they're the primary positions in the portal. I mean, they're the 5-star centers of college basketball. That's what it is for football.
Yeah,
bigs and edge rushers.
Bigs.
All right, Abby. Final question.
Okay, last one. What is your favorite part about your job?
Go ahead.
Favorite part about my job is it never really honestly feels like a job. I think when you wake up, like, you feel like you'd be doing this.
Can't say that.
Well,
go ahead.
Like you feel like you'd be doing this anyway. Like if you had a choice of what you'd wanted to do, like I'd like to follow and read about sports and what we're doing. And like, I never feel like someone's like, how many hours a week do you work? I don't count because I don't care because I enjoy what I do. And I've never really counted hours.
It's kind of hard to count them,
but just then getting out and meeting a lot of Husker fans, like that's probably one of the more enjoyable parts. I mean, I do 50 events a year where I speak to fans. I'll be in Chicago in a couple of weeks for the Chicagoans for Nebraska event at the Big Ten offices in Rosemont
headquarters. Wow.
So just things like that are a lot of fun.
Rob.
Yeah, probably the relationship aspect of it with coaches and players, getting to know these guys beyond the field and the press conferences and the formal stuff, meeting their families, and getting to know their kids and sharing stories about our family, like that sort of thing, like the human connection that goes beyond reporter, coach, player, and actually getting to like develop a real relationship with people over the years. Like, I mean, there's coaches I still talk to that haven't worked in Nebraska for 10 years, and like that's the kind of stuff that, really interests me.
I like the rush of having only a certain amount of time to have to write something and having a quiet window and being able to do it. Those moments don't always occur. I mean, maybe once a week where you just have a set amount of time, you have some silence and you get to create something. I've always enjoyed that. It's a rush. Time goes really fast. You're energized. That's my favorite.
I've used the analogy, like when you're an athlete, you have to go up to the free throw line, hit the free throws.
Yeah.
Or you have to hit a shot, or you have to score a touchdown, get the yard. When you become an adult, you don't really get those moments.
Not very often.
But this job, you can find ways to simulate similar type situations. Like you said, like when I'm on Channel 7 live after Nebraska gets beat by a lot or has an emotional loss, you got to put yourself together and get on the air and know that there could be over 100,000 people watching Channel 7's postgame show.
Good God. Really?
And if you say something wrong, do
they get 100,000?
When the games were on ABC, they would get more than that. Hundreds. I mean,
yeah, you got to get your mind right in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, the game would end at 6 and the news would start right at 6 and you'd go right on immediately when the game was off the air. So.
A lot of that situation and a lot of writing is just getting your mind in the right place. I mean, you got to get it in the right place. Got to get some quiet in your mind, forget everything else just for a little period, and then go back to the craziness of life. Basically.
The rush of breaking a story too.
Oh, Rob knows that rush.
That's fun. That's fun. And then you know what? I like
Rob knows that rush.
That never really like clicked with me when I first started, because I was more of like a feature writer. Didn't really care too much. Then working with Sean, you get that competitive edge a little bit. Yeah, I know. You start breaking them, you're like, I want to do it again.
It's addicting.
I remember the early.
It's a motivator. I love it.
This is what was his name? David. God, he was a Bill Callahan defensive line recruit that never even played it down.
David.
He's from Maryland, DC era, 2005 recruiting class. And he was teammates with AJ Wallace and the younger guy. But anyway, he was going to make his commitment, and I got the heads up on it. And I'm driving to Minneapolis for just a personal trip in like June or July. And I didn't have, this is pre-Wi-Fi access everywhere days.
Oh, really?
And I had to pull off in West Des Moines. And I just barged into the Marriott and went into their business center room and just set up shop in their business.
Did you really?
The computer that you print off like boarding passes.
David Harvey.
David Harvey.
Tight end.
But like I was supposed to get to Minneapolis by like 6 o'clock. I didn't get there till like 10:30 at night because I set up shop in the West Des Moines Marriott to write about David Harvey's commit.
Did you get some food?
I was not married yet, which I was single.
Factor. That's a factor.
But like, yeah, it was. I was like, God, what am I doing? I'm delaying my vacation to like write about David Harvey in the business center room at the West.
Oh God, we've all been there.
One time I was going on a date with my now wife, and we were just on our way, and I get a call, and Sergei Vucevic, remember him?
Yes.
Big 7-foot Serbian.
Yeah.
He committed. And so this was before like I had a smartphone or anything like that. And so I pulled into the University of Nebraska computer lab at the Union and just popped on one of those. Like it was one of the stand-up ones too. And I wrote my story on the stand-up computer in the Union computer lab about Sergey.
That your wife, that's a
well worth it. Yeah, she just sat in the car while I did that.
That was
that's when I knew she was the one.
The early years
she knew you were the one.
She did not leave me after that.
She knew. She said she was thinking in her mind, "Go get that served
She was
done.
right.
Get it done."
Like finding internet in the early days of doing this job was part of the challenge. Like
Yes, it was.
when I was at the Daily Nebraskan, I covered softball, and they played at Creighton. Nebraska did, and I had to file the gamer and send it to Sam McCune, the sports editor, and they didn't have anywhere to go. There was no Wi-Fi,
Right.
and I went into the Creighton dorm, so just kind of slithered in, and I wrote my story
Where?
in the Creighton like dorm computer,
Really?
like in the open, not in someone's room, but like
Yeah.
in,
Just broke into somebody's room.
But in the the lobby.
yeah. And and there wasn't even a seat. I like stood up and I wrote a game story.
Yeah, those were challenge. That's challenging.
You used to always ask like the media relations at the other school if
Yeah.
you could like write in their office. That was kind of the
I've done that. Yep.
Like you'd go to Ames and you'd ask the SID, "Can we work in your office?"
Yeah.
And they would say yes,
Usually.
but not always.
Got more than you bargained for there, Ab.
I always do.
The last question is where old guys get old.
Yeah.
Back in my day before the internet.
Old guys get old. Abby, you got any?
I think especially like this last year with like Husker volleyball, I just got to be a very small piece of so many things that were historic and incredible, and to sit pretty close to courtside for volleyball day in Nebraska with 92,000 people screaming around you. That is something I'll never forget. And
You were
it was
down there.
Super cool. Yep.
She spoke in
Yeah.
Pender to how many people? Like
Like
200?
Yeah, maybe. I don't remember. 150.
She spoke Nebraska volleyball in front of 200 Husker fans.
Available for booking. Abby Barmore.
Abby
Were you
Barmore.
nervous?
Email me. Yeah, I was nervous, but like I was with Kelly Hunter and that was her first time doing that sort of thing. So we were kind of just
Bonded.
We were in the same boat together, but it was good. And yeah, I get lucky to be a very small piece of like covering the incredible things that Nebraska volleyball does because there's quite a list.
We are small pieces.